So happy that Bobby Skinner. Oh, Nikes. Bad time.
All right, let's try and keep cursing and Skinner to a minimum.
Yep, same thing, right? Same thing.
Yeah. All right. We just started. We're good to go. Wait until a few heads enter the stream.
Let me pull this up so I can interact with the chat. I like to do that.
All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are here and ready to break down what seems to be a disaster in an hour.
I think it'll be a miracle if we lose by less than 14 points.
I would agree.
I think we're guaranteed to lose by 14 plus.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance we lose by 20 plus.
So
Tom Brady, man.
I will say the one positive is James Bradbury has history against Mike Evans, and it's a pretty good one. So I will say that's a positive. The negative is going to be, I would say, obviously Gronk. The continuation of can we cover a tight end? Usually in a game like this, also those more shifty receivers like the Scotty Millers of the world in this game are going to feast on the Giants.
I mean that's the big thing is they don't have Ryan Lewis today, so he actually was injured. I think he pulled a hamstring or something in practice, and he was been ruled out. That means Isaac Yadom is going to get the first reps at slot corner for the Giants. I don't know exactly how that's going to turn out because Scotty Miller, is going to torch Isaac Yadom. That's kind of what I'm expecting from this.
That's how it's
this matchup here. Exactly. They don't have Chris Godwin. Thank the good lords. Obviously, I always want to see players healthy and to watch good players compete. For the Giants' sake, if they had Chris Godwin, it would be a joke. This would be a bloodbath more so than it already might be. I'm honestly worried about Gronk too. He's been getting better and better every week. Do you think that Jabril Peppers can actually hold it down? Airborne Cheeseburger back at it.
Airborne Cheeseburger's back. Let's go.
Go ahead, Ann. I'll let you answer it first.
What's the question again? My bad. I was typing it.
Do you think Jabril Peppers can hold? And actually, I think Logan Ryan too will be matched up. Him and Logan Peppers and Logan will be matched up against Gronkowski. Do you think they can slow him down?
Gronkowski. Slow him down, maybe. Honestly, I think in this game, I'm a little bit more worried about our offense than the defense because I feel like the defense has actually been stepping up to play even against these more fierce offensive matchups. But I feel like the offense is just not, matching the competition most of the time. So, like, as much as I think that this game can get really lopsided really quick, I feel like for the first half, it'll probably be close. And then in the second half, at some point, it'll probably implode because the offense isn't on the field long enough and the defense gets gassed. Like, that's how these games usually go for us this season. And that's probably what I'm going to predict here. So I do think, to some extent, these guys will be slowed down, but then they'll hit a point where they start to break out. And then, it'll probably blow the roof off the place. So that's just my very pessimistic and depressed, prediction.
Classic, Anthony. Classic.
I agree, Anthony. I'm going to second that. And I read a tweet. I'm going to read it now from Greg Allman. He covers the Bucs for The Athletic. The Bucs go into tonight's game against the Giants with the league's #1 run defense and also #1 by allowing just 3 yards per carry. That would be 6th lowest average in the Super Bowl era. 5th lowest in rush yards allowed. 2,000 Ravens have both team records. So that's the kind of defense that you're going up against with Todd Bowles coached, coordinated defense there in Tampa. So
they're legit.
They're going to be downhill. They're going to attack. And once again, boys, this Giants offensive line is going to be tested.
Oh, I agree. And
I think the statistic you threw out there is actually a good answer to whose question? Quinn Bartkowski's question about Gallman, how he's going to do. I think you really just pointed out the strength of this Buccaneers defense. Their run defense is pretty crazy. So it should be
Simon. Honestly, anything that's not a bloodbath is probably optimistic at this point. But, going back to the offensive line, Matt, if you don't know, Matt is, teaches the offensive line technique to young kids, played in college, super, super knowledgeable on the positions. And he's a big Shane Lemieux fan. And what Mark Colombo, our offensive line coordinator, said was that Shane Lemieux is exactly what they want in a guard. He's tenacious, he's aggressive. The only problem is he's a little over aggressive. He wants to fight too much, get in there, and he's not really connected in that way and really just mirroring, letting people come to him and reacting. He's being too aggressive, and that's kind of what they were trying to work out of him. But that's also a good thing. You want your guys to be, I'm sure Matt can attest, you want those guys to be animals in the trenches. In the run game, that is where he's going to shine. He's going to shine in that way. The problem is we don't really have a run game. So how do you, Matt, I'm asking you this now. How do you think Shane can change that? Do you think they'll run more weak side, like or more counters to the left? How do you think that they actually get this going with Wayne Gallman?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Giants offensive line, it's super unbalanced in terms of experience, right? The left side of the line, you have Andrew Thomas and Shane Lemieux, basically loading that one side with inexperience, and then the opposite side with Cam Fleming and Kevin Zeitler with overexperience. And then in the middle, again, you have more inexperience with Gates, who has progressed, and I will give him credit for that.
He has.
But I would say, yeah, I think that obviously you're going to see a lot of tight end. I would like to see them kind of bring back the fullback even a little bit more in this game. If you're going to go downhill on this team, you have to do some smash mouth football. I think in terms of run blocking, Andrew Thomas has actually done pretty well. I think most of the complaints in pass blocking, and rightly so, no doubt about it. But Shane Lemieux, yeah, definitely is that mauler. Again, very similar to kind of Will Hernandez in a sense. He's just bigger.
Exactly.
He's just bigger, right? And he's more of that phone booth guy. I was actually just going over with some of my offensive line guys that I coached today, Oregon tape, because I like watching them so much. And what Shane really does well is he really does a nice job of just the point of attack. His anchor is really strong, plays nasty, gets up to the second level really well. Pass protection was really good. You have to look at it too, like his offensive line that he played with at Oregon. You got Penei Sewell, right, who's unbelievable. He's going to be a top 3 pick. Jake Hansen was an All-American. Chance Warmack, and then Calvin Throckmorton, like all 5, like All-Americans. Like, you know what I mean? So you have some big-time offensive line play there. So he's coming from a good pedigree, and I think that I think you're going to see a lot of good stuff out of Shane Lemieux. I don't know if it's going to be right away, but my expectation at the beginning of the year was you were going to see Andrew Thomas, Matt Parrott, and Shane Lemieux on this offensive line at one point, and I think it's going to come to fruition sooner than later.
Yeah, at this point, I think they kind of have to start making that transition. Do you think that they actually, this is very free agent related. If you don't know this, which I can't imagine anyone doesn't know, that the trade deadline is tomorrow, November 3rd. So there are going to be a lot of movements going on. We've already seen Quan Alexander and Desmond King get traded today. And, the Giants have been kind of involved in those talks, whether it be Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, or Kevin Zeitler. I think that, Golden Tate's their priority. Move on from his contract, get rid of that dead cap from next year, let somebody else deal with that contract. And that's the big question for me is like, can they get rid of him? Because that's the money that we're going to have to pay him. He's already making $10 million this year. If we, keep him and let him go, take the out in his contract after this season, he'll count $4.7 million against the cap and dead money. So you don't want that. But for Kevin Zeitler, he's a valuable player. And I don't think that you trade away a player, and he's only making $14.5 million, and that's pretty solid for a very talented guard who's borderline Pro Bowl on any given year. And, he doesn't have that chemistry with Cam Fleming. Nick Gates is young. I mean, Cam Fleming's been a disaster in pass blocking for the most part. But what do you see in that? Do you think Cam Fleming is better than advertised? Do you think he's ranking at the bottom with Andrew Thomas in pass blocking?
I think he stinks. I think Matt Parrott needs to be the starter. Again, when you're talking about, this offensive line, I think that why are we going to continue like the whole veteran trend at this point, like where we're at right now? It can't get much worse, right? I think we discussed this on Twitter. It can't get much worse. Might as well just see what you have in some of these guys moving forward because it may be your best bet, believe it or not. And, I think the Giants are at a double-edged sword here. In terms of the trade deadline, because it's like you're most likely going to move on from Gettleman. And it's like you're either going to trust him to make moves or not make moves. And I feel like either way, it's going to be a problem with the fan base, right? Like we're going to get upset with him and I'm not defending him. I'm not a Dave Gettleman defender, but you're going to get upset if he doesn't move somebody and you're going to get upset if he does because they allowed him to do it. And to be honest, moving a guy like Zeitler makes no sense to me in terms of like, really protecting Daniel Jones. Because now at this point, who do you have in there? Like Chad Slade? Because if Will Hernandez is still out there, now you're talking about a really bad offensive line with a.
You're saying they can move Fleming to right guard and then Parrott to right tackle. I don't trust Fleming at right tackle. Why the hell would I trust him at right guard? He doesn't really play that position. And like, what you're going with what you're saying, I saw someone, Anthony Harris says he's most definitely not worth paying next year. Think about this. You don't pay him. You don't draft a quarterback. Daniel Jones gets slaughtered for the rest of the year because he does not have protection. It sets him back schematically. It sets him back in his progression, in his development, everything. You're hurting your quarterback. You're hurting the running game. You're hurting your receivers. You're hurting the offense and really the development of Jason Garrett's scheme because he's not going anywhere. You pay the money because you have a good player who's going to at least make that right side of that line even okay. I'm okay paying the money for a very talented player. He's one of the guys that, I'm willing to keep. And then you ease a guy like Shane Lemieux, you ease a guy like Matt Parrott into this lineup. But at this point, in the season, I think you just kind of blow it up there at right tackle. You take out Fleming. Parrott can't be much worse than Fleming at this point. And then obviously you have no choice but to put Lemieux at left guard. But I do like Nick Gates, his development so far. He's been getting better progressively. Here's the thing, though. I think that this is actually the perfect time for them to give Lemieux this opportunity because they're going to get some tape on him, see what he's capable of. Tampa's defense is no joke. They're going to overwhelm this offensive line, no matter how you look at it. They're going to expose every single player for their weaknesses. That is what they're going to do. They know they're very, very talented. One of the best, just pass rushing and run stopping defenses in the league. So I think this is really the best part of this game for us is we're going to get to know a lot of these players and what they're really bad at and really where can they go for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to throw out there, I think it's actually kind of funny that like my guy on the offensive line pre-draft was Matt Parrott and we got him. And your guy, Matt, was Shane Lemieux and we got him too. And I'm really excited to see once both of those guys are on the offensive line starting. I hope it's soon. I would like to see them both get extended playing time and really see if we're better evaluators than some of these NFL guys. And maybe we're right about these guys. But I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. And I think that I am ready to blow up this offensive line and move on from Zeitler and go super young on the line. I mean, this would definitely be the youngest offensive line in the league. If you have Andrew Thomas, if you have Will Hernandez once he's back from COVID, if you have Nick Gates, Shane Lemieux, and then Matt Parrott starting on the offensive line. I mean, that's three rookies and then two, one of them is a second-year guy and then one of them is a third-year guy, right? So that's as young as you can possibly get. But I'm all for that for this reason, and the only reason is because say you trade Kevin Zeitler and you get that pick, you have 8 weeks now to just evaluate these rookies, evaluate Shane Lemieux, see if he is the guy like Matt thinks that he is, see that over these next 8 weeks. You get 8 weeks of film heading into the offseason. And then once the draft rolls around, it's either we're going to be talking about drafting another guard or we're going to be talking about reviewing Shane Lemieux's tape, seeing if we can tweak a couple of things and if he's a long-term starter. So I'm ready to just get that tape on these guys. I don't think we're a win-now team. I think Kevin Zeitler deserves to be on a win-now team. And I think that he's good enough to take a win-now team that's missing a guard to the next level. And I just, I don't think he's like a long-term answer for us, even though he's 31 years old and a lot of linemen play till around 35. Like he could be, a long-term piece, but I'd rather honestly just go with the high ceiling, high potential, guy and Shane Lemieux just for the final 8 weeks, see how it goes. And if it goes really poorly, you just reinvest into the offensive line. You draft another guy or you sign another guy or you trade for a guy. Like,
that's my problem though. That's my argument against it is that if let's say Shane Lemieux is, he doesn't play as well as they want him to, they don't feel comfortable going into next year with him. I'm just saying theoretically, he could definitely be awesome. Now you're going into free agency. Like you said, you have to go sign another guard because you're not going to draft one. Unless you're getting him in the first 2 rounds, you're not going to draft one. You could go out in free agency, and I guarantee you to sign a guy like Zeitler, similar talent level, you're paying more than he's going to be paid next year. The market has already been a little bit more.
But don't you want to know at least going into the offseason whether or not you have like an answer at guard? Because what if Shane Lemieux is the guy, and then you go out there and you sign a guy because Shane Lemieux didn't play, and then you're like training camp rolls around and everything. You're like, wow, Shane Lemieux looks better than this guy. You know what I mean? Like, we just need an answer.
Put him in for
Shane
Hernandez.
Lemieux.
Put him in for Hernandez, not Zeitler. Let him compete with Will Hernandez because he hasn't been great either.
But my thing with Hernandez is I'm so sick and tired of Hernandez, but he needs to, improve. And he has these last 8 weeks to do it. We need 8 weeks of film on him as well.
Let them battle it out. Let them battle it out. Let those two guys, because Zeitler is the only continuity we have. Like if you take him out of that line, DJ, you're putting your franchise quarterback, what we hope to be, in serious trouble. The scheme goes down the shitter.
But Zeitler's not getting better at this point in his career. He's only going to get worse. Will Hernandez could get better. He could improve over the next few years and establish himself as a solid offensive guard. Zeitler at this age is only going to get worse, or he's going to stay at the same level. You know what I mean? And Lemieux, same thing. He's only going to get better. So throw these guys in there, and if they do start to get better and improve, you could build a really good young offensive line like the Cowboys did a few years ago, and they set themselves up for a decade.
No, I'm not against that. What I am a little skeptical is that Hernandez is really a run blocking guard, right? He's not the best pass blocking guard. He never was. He's a run blocking guard but with a team that is not running the football. So the next 8 weeks, I have to imagine, aren't going to be good for him.
Well, right? And in fairness, when we talk about what Dave Gettleman's vision was for this team, it was to run the football. And again, I'm not a Dave Gettleman defender or supporter, but that's kind of what they wanted out of it. And to be honest, even when they had Saquon Barkley in there, Alex, to your point, he wasn't even a good run blocker. Okay. So that's a huge problem, and it's like, well, what are the options, moving forward? And it's like, you look in the draft and you sit there and say, well, with a top 5 pick, they're not going to get a guard. Right. So what are the other options? And I think that having a guy like Zeitler, even if it was for one more year, makes a lot of sense because it's a sure thing on the line. Because I think someone even commented in our video here, live, that Thomas is looking like a bust. Now, I think that that's a little too early to declare that, but fair enough to say that right now. I understand that. So right now, the only sure thing is Kevin Zeitler. And to get rid of that, I understand, to get capital.
It scares me.
It does. It's concerning. And again, in terms of ownership, what are they allowing Dave Gettleman to do? That's what I really. That's a really good question. What are they allowing him to do? That's a really good question. Because if they're going to move on, they're not going to allow him to do anything. And I think there's a double-edged sword with that, because Golden Tate, move on from him. You can bring up Benjamin Victor. You brought up Alex Mack. You could bring up Bachman. That's a replaceable guy in Golden Tate, right? He's not putting up monstrous numbers.
Mm-hmm. And he's not separating. And his separation numbers are really bad if you look at next-gen stats.
That catch last week was literally like he was draped over. He had no separation on that.
Right. And that's most of his catches are like bobbling. Like even last year, look at the Patriots.
Pats. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, anyway, that's just my take on that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Sense. I see a lot of people talking about Xavier McKinney. I think that minimum is week 12. I saw him working out on the sidelines, doing some light. It was pretty the early stages of his rehabilitation there. I think that he's going to need at least another 4 or 5 weeks before he's back. We have the bye week, which is good. But I'm excited to see him. I think we will get some film on him this year. It's going to be like a rookie coming off an injury, though. So I don't expect him to be elite right off the bat. I expect to see struggles there, but I do expect to see him play a little bit better than Julian Love, because Julian Love,
I expect to see some flashes of great potential when he.
That's right. Especially like you said in your video, you did an awesome breakdown. It plays a fantastic in cover 1, and then you can man up guys like James Bradbury. We just need that second cornerback. That's where my energy is really focused. Come next offseason, they need to find their number 2 corner, whether it's through the draft or whether it's through free agency. And a lot of people asked me today, why didn't they go out and sign Desmond King? Why didn't they trade a 6th-round pick for Desmond King? And I said, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, right? So the Titans are renting him for this year, unless they franchise tag him, which I cannot imagine that they would do. But you're really renting him for the rest of this year. Why would a losing team at 1-6, maybe about to be 1-7 by all the metrics, going to be 1-7? Why would you give away a 6th-round pick for free, essentially, after they just spent $2 million to get one for the Marcus Golden trade? So why would you give it away for a guy that's going to be rented for half a year? Doesn't make any sense. So that's why the Desmond King thing doesn't make much sense to me. But Xavier McKinney is going to be a guy that comes in. When you pair him, like you said, Afrani, with Darnay Jones, or Darnay Holmes rather, it's going to be really, really fun to see these guys grow and develop together and really create that continuity and chemistry on defense. I actually would like to see them retain Logan Ryan, because he's been really, really, really cool to watch play and really communicate with these youngsters. What do you guys think about him and maybe the Giants extending him for another year or 2?
Yeah, I'd be open to it, because I think he's very versatile. And that's my point on Xavier McKinney, though, is his versatility is really the key, which is what's going to make him great, which might make him struggle early on, especially when he returns from injury this year. Because he's so versatile, they're going to be moving him around, and it might be kind of hard for him to find his footing initially. But I do think long term, it's what's going to make him such a great player, because you can see Xavier McKinney move into the slot and man up a slot receiver and do an excellent job. You can see him get down in the box and man up on a tight end. His man coverage is what really stood out to me on his tape. And then, of course, his run support, I think he's really good at. I think a lot of people kind of had a misconception when we drafted him that he was going to be this rangy free safety that covers the back end while Jabril Peppers steps into the box. And it's really not like that. He's really not that rangy guy. His 40 time wasn't very impressive. And there were occasions where it showed up where he was a little late getting to the sideline at Alabama. But when he lines up in the box and he plays that man coverage against these tight ends and these slot receivers, he's like a lockdown player. He's really good, and you can use him as a utility player all over the field. There were some snaps where he lined up at outside cornerback as well, and he had some success. Like, his versatility is elite. You can move him around, and he will make plays. And then especially in run support, him and Jabril Peppers together in run support, I mean, really, it should be tough for people to run against that defense. We'll see, if that comes to fruition. Like I said, I feel like he might have a little trouble finding his footing early on. But, with him, and then you also add in Logan Ryan and the versatility that he provides, I think that there's a lot of, room for creativity with Patrick Graham and these defenders, especially with what we've seen from Patrick Graham so far this season. I think he has been very creative, and he has moved a lot of players around and used them in surprising ways. So, I mean, I'm ecstatic to see Xavier McKinney get out there. I have been all year. I did that film breakdown. It took me like 5-6 days to make, and it was super fun to do. I enjoyed every second of it just because he's such a fun player to watch. So I can't wait to see him, suit up in blue and go out there and crack some heads for the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. And, when you look at Xavier McKinney, a guy I comped him to when it was the draft time was Minkah Fitzpatrick. You look at a guy who can kind of do it all, Anthony, like you said, come down in the box. He could go back and cover. Even a guy like Harrison Smith, I think Harrison Smith has that mold of he could do it all, kind of safety. He's not that traditional Landon Collins in the box guy, but he's not that, Earl Thomas ball hawk free safety either.
That's a good comparison.
So, I think that's what you can expect out of Xavier McKinney. And I agree when you talk about Patrick Graham, it's a perfect defense for him. Of course, Joe Judge, this is all about relationships, right? He knows Nick Saban in Alabama. He knows everything probably about him before they took him. And I think it's a really good spot. Now, in terms of Logan Ryan, I can totally see that, being an extension kind of deal. Local guy, Rutgers, towards the end of his career, maybe a 1 to 2 year deal. You've heard some rumblings about Nick Caserio coming over from New England, who had a lot of experience with Logan Ryan. Of course, Joe Judge having that experience, and Patrick Graham, obviously there's a reason he's there. So when you talk about the NFL, it's about relationships, and that's what this is. And you could see these guys being interchangeable at free, strong, slot corner. It really helps the Giants out a lot. And then one thing I wanted to touch on when we talked about Julian Love, he was a Thorpe Award winner a finalist as the nation's top D-back that year, along with DeAndre Baker. And I'm curious as to why they've never really tried him out at corner outside. It's something that is kind of mind-boggling to me. I understand why they kind of moved him around. They've tried him in the slot. But the one spot they haven't really tried him is outside corner. And it's like, we talk about it all the time on the offensive line. Everyone thinks it's easy to move from right to left and this and that. It's not that easy of a transition. So I can imagine the transition from safety to corner to this. It's a little bit odd, especially mentally. I would give the guy a shot at CB2, especially tonight. I mean, why not? You have nothing to lose.
I could see them doing that when McKinney comes back, because I think their major concern with Love is that he's not fast enough. Which I get, but when I'm looking at this, they don't really have another free safety back there. Really, they could put Logan Ryan back there, but they don't want to. They could put Jabril Peppers, but we've seen them interchange those guys so frequently. I think that when McKinney comes back, he solidifies that free safety spot, and they're moving, Jabril Peppers and McKinney back and forth. I think that is when Love will get his shot at slot safety. But we talked to Brandon, what's his name? Brandon London. Brandon London. He works for the media with the Giants. And he was telling us that he's seen Julian Love play exclusively at free safety all training camp. So we know that they were not really testing him at cornerback at all. They were really, forming him into that free safety. And I really liked how Julian Love plays, because he's kind of like a utility player. They can put him at multiple different spots. He has the experience and the technique to do so. But I just don't think that he is like top starter level quality. I think that he's very, very good to have if you have an injury or you need to supplement or want to use some 3 safety looks. That's how I really see him fitting into this team. Great depth piece.
But what I always thought was weird about that is that they were playing him exclusively at free safety when last year, for those final 5 weeks of the season, when he was a starter, he was playing strong safety and he was in the box and he was thriving. He was playing really well. So they had him go from cornerback to strong safety. They made that position switch. And then this year they have him go from strong safety to free safety, make another position switch. And now he's just kind of positionless. And we don't know where he fits in this defense because he didn't really excel at free safety. So I'm just confused as to what the hell they're actually doing with Julian Love and why they don't just stick him where he's good, like where he plays well, strong safety. I mean, I get Jabril Peppers is there and he was filling in for Jabril Peppers. So maybe that's the reason why. Maybe he's just not a scheme fit with Patrick Graham and he was a scheme fit with James Betcher. That's very well possible. But I am a big Julian Love fan. And I do think that I remember plays against Miami last year and against Philadelphia at home last year where he got down in the box and he shot some gaps and he made some phenomenal tackles in the backfield. Like a true strong safety would. And I was really impressed with that. And I just wish that we would see him, do that more often. And I wish that the Giants would really emphasize his strengths more so than they have at least.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense in what you talk about. And again, talk about contracts and decisions the Giants have to make in terms of Jabril Peppers, right? So, again, when McKinney comes back, that could be a guy you take a look at strong safety where he did excel, because if they want to move on from a guy like Peppers, that is an option down the line in Love. But I agree, very similar to Marcus Golden. You see who they just traded. He was not a scheme fit in this defensive scheme under Patrick Graham. And I think he was obviously more under James Betcher, who he had a history with at Arizona in terms of Marcus Golden. So that's very well a good possibility in terms of Julian Love and scheme fit. But you hate to see them give up on a young, promising player.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Simon just said, we need a true guy in the deep center field. I really liked Antoine Bethea.
I hope not.
Antoine Winfield Jr. Loved Winfield Jr. coming out of Minnesota.
Yes,
I really liked him.
Yeah.
And the Giants, they went with McKinney, which I'm okay with because Winfield was the number 2 safety on the board, more of a deep safety kind of guy. But that guy is aggressive. He can run up, stop the run. He's fast. He plays like his dad, like a younger.
Buda Baker 2.0.
You're right. And he'll adapt and get better as the season goes on. But I was just on a Tampa Bay podcast a couple days ago, and I was asking him, like, how's Winfield looking for you guys? And he was like, he's been amazing. He gets better every single week. And I'm like, damn, like, I really liked him going into the draft. He was one of the guys I wish the Giants would have taken. But then again, you don't know what they have in McKinney. He could be even better. So the injury really derailed everything. And, we got to see, how things pan out. But this game tonight is going to open up a lot of discussion for this team. Tomorrow could either be a very, very depressing day or a decent day. They're going to be sellers, in my opinion. They're not going to go out and trade for anybody, but it depends how many people they actually trade is whether it's depressing or if it's just like, it's okay. It could be bad.
Well, I'll say real quickly, I'm excited because we're actually going to get to see Antoine Winfield play tonight against the Giants, so that should be fun. And then also in regards to tomorrow and really the future of this team and the direction they're headed with Dave Gettleman, you mentioned it earlier, Matt, Nick Caserio. I'd actually like to get your guys' opinion on Nick Caserio and Dave Gettleman and really the whole general manager position. I'll throw mine out there briefly. I'm not the biggest Nick Caserio fan. You look at the way that the Patriots have been drafting as of late, and it hasn't been so good. Bill Belichick has final say on the draft picks, but I mean, they work in tandem, and they just haven't been doing a good job lately. They haven't drafted a Pro Bowler in years, so I don't know. That's a little tough. I want to hear your guys' opinions on Nick Caserio, though. He's a hot name.
Hi, Alex.
Well, okay, so Nick Caserio definitely has the pedigree, right? Just same as Joe Judge. He has the background. He's been working with one of the best GMs in the history of any sport. Now, like you said, the Patriots have only had 4 Pro Bowlers since 2013, different players. And I think only one of them was starting, which was Brady. And maybe he wasn't even starting at the time, and it was 2017, I think. So, this is a big question for Giants fans. Who do you replace Dave Gettleman with? Do you take Caserio to go for Ed Dodds?
Please don't say.
Oh, no.
Because people are going to say that.
I'm thinking realistic. Now, Caserio is a very, very good option because he comes with the chemistry that Joe Judge and him already have. They're on the same page, right? That's
the relationships thing that Matt was talking
exactly,
about.
Matt, the relationship. So I don't feel like the Giants, it's only Dave Gettleman's fault, because I read something the other day that was actually really interesting. The Mara, I think it's Chris Mara, one of the brothers, one of the sons or something. He's very much involved. He went through the system as a scout, Now he's very much involved in the drafting, involved in everything. And I think there's too much too many opinions going around. I don't think anyone can build this team the way that they really want to, unless somebody comes in here that they're like, we need you to overhaul this thing. I think they should bring in a third party to kind of reevaluate this entire organization from top to bottom, see how the decisions are being made. Because I don't want to blame Gettleman for everything, because there are other factors at play here. Chris Mara is sitting behind the scenes, also influencing these decisions.
Fair point.
So what I will say is that I think a guy like Caserio, or someone, a veteran that maybe has a more modern day approach, would make sense to me. Someone that comes in that people respect around the league, that guys like Chris Mara will listen to. And Joe Judge is one of those guys, by the way. He's one of those guys that's coming in here and he's enforcing discipline. People respect him more than you'd think already. You just look at the Cowboys, for God's sakes. Look at the Cowboys. They're a mess. Like I just tweeted this other day. Mike McCarthy must have been spending the whole last year like figuring out how to destroy an organization in like 3 months, right? How the hell did he come into that team with that Super Bowl potential at the beginning of this year and completely make them into sellers at the deadline? Right? They're trading players. They released 2 of their defensive guys, one of the historically bad defenses that we've seen in years. And Dak Prescott's down. You're seeing Ben DiNucci at quarterback. What we're seeing here is what good coaching compared to bad coaching looks like. And I think it starts with Joe Judge, and whoever he feels is the right GM, he's going to have a lot of say in who they bring in to help him build this team if they get rid of Gettleman. And I could totally see it being Caserio for that reason, just the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Caserio is going to be at the top of their list, like they talked about. One guy I'm curious to see if they do kind of circle back is John Dorsey, just because I know that they had a lot of, interest in him before Dave Gettleman, and they wanted to hire him before Dave Gettleman, and kind of, that happened. But, another guy I think keep an eye on is a guy who works for Chris Ballard in Indianapolis is Ed Dodds.
That'll be huge.
Ed Dodds would be a guy that I would definitely look at as a possibility for this franchise. And again, I think that you're going to see Joe Judge have a huge say in all this, and what it comes down to with Caserio is does he want to leave New England? Because if Belichick leaves, maybe he does take on that role of obviously not head coach, but does he take on that bigger role there? Does he work with McDaniels, who he obviously has some pedigree with? But I think, Alex, you hit the nail on the head with Chris Merriman. And I think what scares me, this is what we all want to happen, but what scares me is what I feel is going to happen. And they're going to elevate Kevin Abrams to GM.
Please, God, please,
crap
God.
Cycle. But let's be honest here. But let's be honest here. This is something that we have to deal with. And it's a reality. Like, this is a real possibility for the Giants, unfortunately, because what the Giants are afraid of, and maybe the glimmer of hope is the Joe Judge hire, but what they're afraid of is to go out of the organization and be different, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to pay Matt Rule $10 million a year because they don't do that. They don't want to, mess up the Giant way, whatever that means, because apparently the Giant way is losing.
We suck now.
Right? So to be honest with you, and that bothers me, like the Joe Judge hire is a great sign of hope, but they need to continue that. And that's the biggest thing. And I think one guy who's definitely not here by the end of the year, Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett.
You don't think so?
I think Jason Garrett's done. I do.
Okay. Well, here's my thing is on Garrett, because I've honestly been watching a lot of the film on the offense. I really think Garrett has gotten better week to week. Like every week I've seen improvement, and that does give me a little bit of hope towards, maybe by the end of the season, the offense actually does look like really solid, and we can build on that going into next year. But I want to touch on Caserio again, and I want to say that a couple of things that I'll point out as positives for Caserio. He doesn't give out terrible contracts like we've seen Gettleman do time and time again. He doesn't give out bad contracts.
Kevin
Abrams also gives out. Yeah, he's the money guy for the Giants. So with Caserio, he doesn't give out bad contracts. And then also, he might not have hit on a lot of Pro Bowlers. But what I will say is I feel like a lot of the time the Patriots are drafting very scheme specifically. and they're
That's right.
drafting guys to fit in their schemes.
And they win, by the way.
And it helps them build their roster in a way that, wins games. So maybe he's not getting these star-studded players, but he is finding scheme fits that are doing a solid job and contributing in some sort of way. Like Chase Winovich is like one of those guys who flies under the radar, but is a perfect scheme fit for them and has actually played pretty well. But he's not a big name guy, like examples like that. And, I think the Giants, I agree with you. Joe Judge was like really like a glimmer of hope for, being more progressive and going outside of the organization and really doing something different here. But would Caserio really be a continuation of that, or would it not? I don't know, because that's just the Giants once again trying to bring in familiarity and replicate someone else's ideas. So Joe Judge, I mean, even he had some familiarity, right? Because they had that connection to Belichick and they called him and they got the personal recommendation of Joe Judge and all of that. But, I just think going forward, like I would like to see a Dodds. I would like to see something out of the box. Maybe someone from the Baltimore tree or the Kansas City tree, someone more out of the box and way more progressive. I know, a lot of fans really love Saquon Barkley and they love that run first offense, but we're all bitching and moaning about this offense right now because it's like a run first, try and shove it down your throat offense that Jason Garrett's been trying to build and has been failing to build. I would like to see a more progressive. Look at what the Cardinals are doing. The Seahawks have gotten away from being that run first team and they're thriving now. They were always stuck in that let's run the ball 40 times a game. And Russell Wilson's never gotten an MVP because he was always being held back by that. Now they're like, Russell Wilson, throw your moon balls and drop some dimes all game. And they're excelling and he's playing at that MVP level. I'm all in favor of a pass first offense. And I think that's really the direction that the Giants need to go.
Anthony, I'm going to give you guys real quick, Alex. I just want to give you guys a name
go ahead.
to watch for in the GM search. It's out of the box. It's not Louis Riddick, because Louis Riddick would have drafted Dwayne Haskins and signed Landon Collins to an extension. So people who say Louis Riddick can take a hike. But it's a media member, and I'm going to say Daniel Jeremiah. I think Daniel Jeremiah would be a crazy outside the box candidate from the Baltimore tree. Worked with Ozzie Newsome. He knows how to scout players. Mike Mayock did it. I think Daniel Jeremiah would be a super under the radar. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be a big dark horse for me.
I want to jump in on that because I'm a huge Daniel Jeremiah fan. Actually, he is like my favorite guy in the media to listen to, especially around draft time. I think he's such a great evaluator. And whenever I watch the draft, right, because they have the ESPN coverage and they have the NFL coverage, I'm going to Daniel Jeremiah every single time. I'm going to the NFL Network just because of him. Like, I don't care about Mel Kiper's opinion. He sucks. Give me Daniel Jeremiah 10 times, out of 10 times. I'm a big fan of his, but I do have a little bit of concerns because I do think he has, expressed some sentiment of agreeing with like the Saquon Barkley pick and this run first offense. So there is like a little bit of concern, but I also think, a lot of that is because he's in the media and he has to say things that fans want to hear. So it is a little hard to gauge, what his true MO is, but you mentioned that he was part of that Ozzie Newsome tree. He's really an excellent talent evaluator. So I love that dark horse candidate. I'm actually really happy you threw that out there because I'm just a big Daniel Jeremiah fan in terms of the media. The biggest drawback of that is that we don't get to listen to him, during draft time analyzing.
We get to listen to him on the Giants, though. Might be more fun.
That's true. And hopefully he'll meet with the fucking media more often than Dave Gettleman does. That guy disappears for 10 months out of the fucking year. Don't even get me started on that.
The last thing he said was, I promise we're going to solve the offensive line.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
And when was that? That had to be 6 months ago.
6 months ago. Every time he comes out, he makes some wild statement guaranteeing stuff and then disappears. And then he hides behind in the shadows. But I feel like if they hired Louis Riddick, I feel like Annie Apple would end up being our head coach or something.
Oh my God.
You remember Annie Apple?
Stop that.
Eli
Please
Apple's
stop
mom?
That. Yeah.
Please stop.
No. But I like where you guys are
evilness.
thinking. I like where you guys are thinking with this because I've been harping and really really saying a lot how much we need to modernize this team. And I feel like Dave Gettleman's trying to build a 1935 football team.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Leather
like he's trying to leather helmets, like just bring back the leather helmets if you're going to be drafting guys to run. And he actually, here's an idea I had because obviously Saquon Barkley is on this team for whether we like it or not. They're not going to trade him now. I think that they should try and use Saquon like they do out like the Saints do Alvin Kamara and with a little bit more running for Saquon. And they should get another big body guy that can just run those like short yard inside zone, pick up those few yards, get the first downs, and then use Saquon as more of like a receiving back, but also, also running outside the zone. They just don't use him correctly, in my opinion. We saw how Pat Shermer used him in 2018, and I even then I was like, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't even think they're using him correctly. Then you put him on a good team, that knows how to use a player like Saquon Barkley, and he's one of the best running backs that we'll ever see in our lifetime. We're just doing ourselves a disfavor by not putting him in a position where we have a modernized GM that's trying to build around your best player. So like you guys said, I would love to see a GM that's younger, has that mindset, more offensive, more passing. That's why I want, Saquon to be more involved in the passing game. We're talking about a guy who averages maybe 4 catches per game. Then you look at Kamara and he's averaging 10 to 13 receptions per game. And who would you pay more right now? That's my point.
But I'll also have to just throw this out here. My little Saquon Barkley spiel is because, in quarantine, when I was bored as hell, I went and I watched every single rushing attempt by Saquon Barkley of last season. And I watched most of his receiving targets too. And the conclusion that I came to is that Saquon Barkley is being held back by a bad offensive line and a bad offensive scheme that doesn't know how to use him. And he also holds himself back a little bit because his vision sometimes isn't that great, right? So all of these things combined just really tells you how much the running back position is dependent on and how you can't actually build a team around the running back, and that the Giants have really set themselves up for failure with this, this way of building this team. And I don't know. That's my spiel. I don't want to get too into that because Saquon Barkley's injured and I actually love watching him play and I do totally respect him as a person and the player. It's just we're talking about the GM and the direction that these general managers go and the direction that Dave Gettleman has gone. And the direction he's going is trying to build a run-first offense around the scat running back who is just really large. And it wasn't the right way to go. And I think in hindsight, we can all admit that.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Evan Ingram a little bit. Matt, do you have any last words on Saquon? Done with Saquon?
I have a lot of words on Evan Ingram, but go ahead.
I know you do. Evan Ingram. Wow. Okay. What do we start with this? Anthony and I, if you didn't watch it, did an hour and 20-minute breakdown of every target for Evan Ingram.
That was painful.
This year so far. It was painful. You should go check it out.
It was fun.
It was great time, and we're going to do it, by the way, guys. We are going to, it was informational. And what we're going to do is this week with Matt, our offensive line guru, we're going to break down Shane Lemieux's tape for you guys. And we're going to make this kind of like a class session. He's going to teach us about it. We're going to ask him questions. He's going to tell us about, what he likes from Shane and what he needs to work on from this against this Tampa Bay team. So, moving on to Evan Ingram, we did a lot of work on him. And what I will say is that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. It was a lot of scheme related stuff. Jason Garrett trying to, fit, him into this Jason Witten role. And they just weren't pushing him down the field enough, mainly because the offensive line wasn't giving DJ enough time. But we're seeing progression. We saw a lot of progression with, Evan Ingram being a bigger part of this system and scheme, a lot of hot routes to him, as Anthony mentioned in the video. But what the thing is with him is that he just can't catch. The guy can't run block. And he's basically a wide receiver. He's basically a receiving tight end that cannot catch. He catches he tries to catch like this. Like if you've ever
claps the ball, which is football 101 is you let the ball, he claps it though. That's like the number one thing they teach you not to do.
And what's funny is catch against Philly, he goes like this. His hands are like here. Like this is the vision he gives you. You ever see that? He sticks his hands all the way out as almost as like his arms are completely straight. Like it's almost like he's like too rigid. Like he's like worried he's going to drop it.
He doesn't know how to catch a football. And another thing, Matt, I got to point this out. I pointed it out to Alex and I pointed it out on the YouTube channel a few times. Have you ever noticed that Evan Ingram doesn't strap his gloves?
I have not noticed that.
So you're supposed to strap your gloves, Velcro them in. He always leaves them off, and there's that strap just dangling around. And I'm pretty sure
incompletion because of that, by the way.
I'm pretty sure in week 1, that offensive pass interference or that defensive pass interference that didn't get called, the guy was holding on to his hand strap. His glove strap. And I don't understand that because put some gloves on sometime. Go out, throw a football with a friend, put some gloves on, don't strap them. When the ball hits your hands and if it's a heater, your gloves are going to move with the ball and you're not going to catch it. But if you strap them in, the glove is going to stay put and it's going to stick to your hands. And I don't understand why he doesn't strap his gloves. And I'm so pissed about it. And I'm actually thinking about reaching out to one of these beat writers and trying to get them to ask Evan Ingram why he does that, because it just seems like such a no-brainer. It's literally causing drops. And it's just like so pointless. I don't understand why he does it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think when Evan Ingram, talk about Evan Ingram, talk about scheme fit, and again, you want to be a downhill running football team. He's not a good blocker. Like, let's just start with that, right? He's not a good blocker. Yeah, I know he's a willing blocker. Fantastic. If you're in the NFL, you're a willing blocker, right? You wouldn't have made it that far.
Blocker.
Okay. That's what they always say about him. He's a willing blocker. He can't block. All right. That's number one. And also, I think that's a big part of why Andrew Thomas kind of failed, because it's like, all right, you're going to have Evan Ingram chip the guy, and it's just like he's not going to do the job. So, obviously his speed is second to none. I just think he's not playing confident right now. I think that he's just there's so much things to say, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head, so I don't want to overdo it. I just think he's not playing confident. I have no faith in him. I don't think the fan base has faith in him right now. I hope he proves us wrong. He has to have a big night tonight, in my opinion, to really, again, and I hope he does. This is the night to do it, especially after he blew the game against the Eagles. Let's face the facts.
He did. We lost that game because of him.
So
that's the bottom line. We lost the game because of him. But there's two things. When you have a passing tight end, a receiving tight end that can't catch, you have to try and get the ball into him in other ways. And that's why we've seen so many end arounds with him, because they're like, if we can get him into space with the ball, he can make things happen. So they're literally just handing him the ball to make sure he does not drop it. And he even did that against, against the Rams or the 49ers? I think it was against the Rams. He dropped that end around pass. It wasn't the best from DJ by any means, but it was right in front of him. You have to catch it. You're a professional athlete. You catch that ball. And that's the thing. They considered him their top playmaker, their best playmaker. So when you have your best playmaker that you literally have to scheme into space to get him the ball because you're scared he's going to drop it, or he's going to drop an end around, that's really hard, because they can easily take him out of the game in those ways. We've been seeing so many different ways that, Jason Garrett's been trying to get him the ball, and he drops easy passes. A couple of DJ's turnovers have been because of him. That fumble last week, that was essentially like the equivalent of like a Hail Mary at the end of the game. There was no time. He's trying to make something happen, waited in the pocket for a little too long, caused that fumble. That doesn't happen if Evan Ingram just catches the damn ball in the first place. So I don't blame DJ for that whatsoever. That was a product of his drop. But, this game, I do want to talk about DJ a little bit, because this is a big game for him, in my opinion. I think that we're going to have to see, this is where the improvement's going to shine with DJ, right? The awareness issues, all of those things the fumbling issues, the turnover issues, this game for him is going to be very, very big, because this Tampa defense is legit. They have a very good pass rushers. They have Levante David, who was one of the best cover linebackers in the NFL. Devin White, who was one of the best run stopping and blitzing linebackers in the NFL. Amazing cornerbacks, amazing safeties, amazing defensive line. All of this culmination of development for DJ, it has to happen today. We have to see some of that progress occur. And thank goodness we have Sterling Shepard in the lineup, that we can at least say he has some weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to throw this out here. Let's say all in favor of trading Evan Ingram for a 4th round pick. Say aye.
Aye.
I don't think I'd do it.
I'm saying nay. And for a 3rd round pick, aye or nay?
Oh, third. Okay. If you're giving me multiple options here, 3rd round.
I'm going to give you more than one option. 3rd round pick, that's a yes. No.
3rd round pick, yes. 4th round pick, no.
I would do a 3rd.
Okay. I'm in that boat too. And the thing is with Evan Ingram, I know we mentioned this in that video, and I don't want to harp on him too much longer, because I do actually really want to talk about Daniel Jones as well. Is Evan Ingram, I do find it kind of hard to move on from him at this current moment, just because of the way the offense is set up. It revolves around Evan Ingram. Him and his stick routes and his hitch routes are literally the hot read, the first read on every single play. The offense revolves around him. It goes from Ingram to the slot, to the outside, and to the other side of the field. That's how it goes. It always goes Ingram or the tight end first. So how do you take Ingram out and then plug, another tight end in there? I think that can get really difficult for Daniel Jones and really the Giants offense. It could somehow go from bad to worse, right? But talking about Daniel Jones, I really am impressed with the way he's played this season. I know a lot of people don't agree, but I think last week especially, he really came of age and came into his own. He traveled to Philadelphia on the road and put the team in position to win the game. When he needed to throw a clutch pass to win the game, he delivered, and Evan Ingram dropped it. And I think that would have been a huge moment for Daniel Jones's career, and it really would have changed the way that we all look at him as a quarterback, and it really would have changed the narrative. And I'm very upset about the fact that narrative was changed by that drop pass, because I think that could have been the breakout moment for Daniel Jones, where we all start to rally behind him and believe in him. I think that was the moment. and it was totally stripped away from him. And that's just so disappointing. But, he's got another opportunity tonight, and he'll have 8 more opportunities, 7 more opportunities after this week to really cement himself before we head into this offseason and start having to have, difficult conversations. But I feel like a lot of people would have jumped off this quarterback in the first round hype train if we won last week.
Yeah, I agree. In my opinion, I actually do believe in Evan Ingram after that game. I know, like you said, I think a lot of people aren't rallying behind him, but I am. I think that showed a lot. Listen, he's 3-15 or 16 as a starter, but you see a lot better of a quarterback than that record.
I agree.
Right? And I think it's a product of everything else around him last year, the defense and obviously, the offensive line, and we could go on and on. There's no doubt he's a franchise quarterback. And I really think that it's really unfair to judge him right now based off of everything he has right now. No Saquon. Evan Ingram's been god-awful. Slayton is his only real option. Realistically, let's think about that.
They can factor him out. He's a number 2.
Separation. Honestly, the best playmaking threat on the Giants, aside from Darius Slayton, is Daniel Jones.
Is DJ.
Right. So
he's our leading rusher.
He carries that offense.
He does. He carries this offense. And yeah, I get it. The turnovers, no doubt. He would tell you the same thing. He needs to clean it up. Everyone needs to clean it up. The whole organization
gotten better with the fumbles.
Clean it up, right? Like, I get it. And to your point, going back to Evan Ingram, I thought of while we're talking about it, I thought of a good trade partner for Evan Ingram. 3rd round pick, like we discussed. They need a tight end, and he would fit their offense beautifully. Playoff team. They have history with trading with them. The Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals. I think when you talk about that tight end and Cliff Kingsbury's offense,
that'd be pretty nasty.
For a 3rd round pick, yeah, I'll take it. Listen, they're going to be a playoff team. It'll be a lower end 3rd round pick. But when you talk about trade deadline, these teams are going to be towards the lower end of these rounds. They're going to be playoff type teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think look at Arizona, by the way.
Perfect fit for him. I just want to throw that out there. Him and the Panthers offense with Joe Brady, I think that might take them to the next level and actually push them into a wild card.
That's a really good.
That was the one I'd thrown out there.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, agreed. And I just want to mention there's a couple teams that have turned their rebuilds around very, very quickly, including the Cardinals and the 49ers. They were awful 2-3 years ago, and they're now in positions to make the playoffs, aside from, 49ers who are just dealing with so many injuries right now, which is just like, what can you do? The Giants are nowhere close to them. If they, they played the 49ers, if they play, and they got blown out by the 49ers, by the way, they're backups, essentially, Nick Mullins. If they played the Cardinals right now, it would be a joke. The Cardinals would trample them in every facet of the game.
We'll see in a few weeks, talking about we're going to play them.
Exactly. And we see, we've seen the comparisons between what they've done compared to what we've done. And a lot of that is Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. Like those 2 guys have just found the match made in heaven. And then they traded for DeAndre Hopkins. You have, Kenyon Drake. You have a good team there. I actually would love to see, I wouldn't love to see Evan Ingram on that team unless they gave us something good return, but I could see that being a very, very elite, they scheming him the ball. Because when you have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you're literally taking a section of the field away. If you just route Evan Ingram across that side of the field and you give him that space, because they're following DeAndre Hopkins down the field.
He'll never drop a pass again if he goes to them.
He'll never drop a pass again. And
he'll be the best blocking tight end in the league. It'll just magically happen. Trust me.
Yep.
So,
hey man, it's kind of hard to drop a perfect Kyler Murray pass, man. He's got so much touch on those balls.
He does. He's like
probably the drops will probably disappear. Yeah, I mean,
and I want to say when it comes to quarterback play, look at Aaron Rodgers right now. He's been getting crapped on the past couple of weeks, and mainly because Bakhtiari was out, and he's a unbelievable generational talent right there.
Yeah,
that's a huge loss. And he doesn't have any wide receivers. His best wide receiver is Devontae Adams, who's back now. And if you we don't have a Devontae Adams. The Giants don't have a Devontae Adams. They don't. Now let's see this, because Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked that great the past couple of weeks. And no one's saying, oh, Aaron Rodgers sucks, because he doesn't suck. He has a better offensive line than the Giants. He has Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, far better playmakers across the board. And people still look at DJ and say, he's not capable of doing it. I simply have the optimism in him, and I think that he's very capable of being a quality quarterback. And And, I'm not saying Rodgers is doing bad this season, but what I am saying is when he had that bad game against Tampa and stuff, you usually don't see that from a player of his quality, but the weapons he's just lacking in so many areas. You see it affect him. You see these different factors play a part in his struggles at times. And you look at Daniel Jones and you're like, how on earth could he possibly compete with what he has?
Yeah, I think Rodgers is playing at an MVP level, but I think probably it's true over the last 2 weeks, there's been a little decline in performance. I think we can agree with that. They've been losing and it's been a little bit of a struggle for them, but I just think it's kind of hard to make comparisons between a proven commodity like that and a guy like Daniel Jones. I think really the better comparison that we can make is, everybody loves to make every fucking excuse in the world for Carson Wentz, the most overrated quarterback in the league, but Daniel Jones doesn't get the same energy. And I don't get it, man. Daniel Jones, everyone's like, oh, Carson Wentz, he's throwing to Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward. It's okay, what about when Daniel Jones had garbage. Golden Tate as his best receiver on the field? What do you mean, man? And he's got a even worse offensive line. You could probably make that argument. I know the Philadelphia offensive line is just ravaged with injuries, but some of those backups are probably better than the Giants starters. So, I think the energy needs to be reciprocated in the same way. I mean, that guy Carson Wentz has 23 turnover-worthy plays through 8 weeks of the season. He's on pace for over 46 turnover-worthy plays. That's ridiculous, man.
That's insane. And
I'm not a Carson Wentz fan. I think he's the most overrated quarterback.
Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, and Jason Peters is all you need to know about that offensive line. They're way head and shoulders above Kevin Zeitler, who's even the Giants' best offensive lineman. So, and even if you want to count injuries into that, Jason Kelce is better than Kevin Zeitler, period. So there you go. Mm-hmm. End of story.
It's true.
So
it's true. And, I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers against Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago. He finished with 160 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. What Tampa did to him. Yeah, I know that, but that's what I'm saying.
That's what we're in store for tonight, though. That's the defense we're playing tonight.
And look, DJ can put up a touchdown, 2 touchdown passes. Who knows? I with what he has to use right now, man, you can't tell me that he doesn't deserve a little bit more time with some more weaponry. That's just how I feel. Anyway, before we wrap up here, guys, I want to get your score predictions and your drink of choice for tonight. This is going to be either a bloodbath or a Joe Judge miracle.
Go ahead, Ant. I'll let you go first, bud.
Score prediction, I do think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers crack 30 points. I'm going to go 34-21. I actually think the Giants offense surprises a little bit. I think Daniel Jones puts something together at some point. I do think we get around 21 points, somewhere around there. I could see it being a lot lower, though. So I'm going to go 34-21. Drink of choice is going to be Propel because my blood tests were bad last week. I have a bad liver, so no more drinking for me.
Oh,
wow. Now you're going to make me follow up on that? Thanks a lot, Ant. 38-17 Bucks. And my drink of choice is anything that will help me get through this.
Yeah, I'm probably not feeling as optimistic as the rest of you, at least Anthony, at least. I'm probably going to go 37-10 for the Bucks. Oof. And I think a lot of it's going to happen in the second half, though. I think that the Giants are going to come out strong, and the Bucs defense is just going to keep pounding on the offense. There's the defense for the Giants is going to get gassed at halftime.
The Giants are going to keep us in it, just keeping us watching until
the end. They get blown out. But I think I just want to see some competitiveness from them. Really, I just want to see them stay in the game a little bit. And my drink of choice will always be tequila time. When I'm watching the Giants, I usually don't want to wake up tomorrow. I usually don't want to remember.
Okay. I need a little clarification, Alex. When you're saying it's tequila time, are you taking straight shots of tequila during these games, or are you at least mixing it?
Mix it. Why would you mix? This is the Giants. You go straight.
Okay, I just needed the clarification. I don't know if
there's no chaser
Sprite,
needed.
Or if you're just
the chaser's just watering it down. The chaser's just water it down. I want to go to blackout as fast as possible.
What type of tequila, Alex?
Jose Cuervo, a little gold.
Cuervo.
I probably would do that one. There's some shitty brand in my cabinet right now that I'll never wake up from.
It'll get us
that might be bleach. I'm not sure yet. Anyway, fellas, I appreciate everyone who stopped by and hung out with us during the live stream. Talk Giants, hung out. And, we do this every week from now on. So we'll definitely have Matt on again. We'll talk about offensive line this week. We're going to break down Shane Lemieux for you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's not as bad as some people might imagine it will be today, because this is a tough defense we're up against. But guys, I want to thank you for coming on the channel, Matt and Anthony. And any last words you have for us?
Fire Dave Gettleman 2020.
Facts.
I'm gonna second that. Fire Dave Gettleman. Can't say anything better than that right now.
Love you too, Big Money. And Simon, appreciate you guys coming in. Airborne
Appreciate
Cheeseburger,
everybody.
Phil, everyone.
Squad.
Gotta get your name.